With this session update, I'm Shannon Lurkey. The Senate Subcommittee on Property Taxes debated a bill that would adjust a city's local government aid when that city owes money to another city or county for services resulting from a mutual aid agreement. Here are some highlights from that meeting.
The bill itself, as amended, is fairly simple. It is a response to requests that the governor had made concerning a guarantee of payments for those communities that provide mutual aid. Rather than setting up an additional fund and taking money from education and other purposes that we have within our budget, what this bill does is that if a community does not pay the agreed to amounts through their mutual aid agreements, that the money would then be withheld upon proper certification with the state auditor and information given to the Department of Revenue, that it would be withheld from their next payment of local government aid. This would begin in 2021 and would then give any community the assurance that they would be paid. It was our understanding that there were mutual aid agreements that communities were being reluctant to sign as a result of that concern, and this should take care of that problem.
County program aid and local government aid are intended as a general purpose aid for counties and cities to use to meet needs in their communities. These aids were not designed as a response to current issues and should not be used as such.
I'm very worried about the chilling effect that a proposal to tie LGA to mutual aid might have. As a chief, I am constantly worried about my budget, frankly. That's one of the things that chiefs fret over on a day-to-day basis. And if I have to worry about whether the local government aid that's going to come to my city is going to further reduce my ability to perform my duties in the long run, it may cause me to pause and think about, do I really want to call in mutual aid? Do I want to call in additional resources if I know that on the back end, I'm likely to see my budget cut? We're only 28 days away from jury selection. We still don't have all of the officers that our unified command plan says are needed. And so I'm asking the Senate to act, which I know is a deliberative body. I served with you for a very short period of time. And I know that it's a deliberative body, but I'm asking for swift action on this. I really do need to get a solution because I'm literally planning to be on the phone calling chiefs of police and calling sheriffs to ask them for this aid.
The history of mutual aid in the state kind of started after the Comfrey St. Peter tornado in 1998, where Minnesota decided we needed a system to make sure that law enforcement was capable of sort of mutually supporting each other everywhere throughout the state. And then, of course, it's come up in significant memorable incidents since then, recently in the Northern Metals fire in Becker, where the fire raged for 7 days and resources were diverted from all over the state. We had a network to make sure that Minnesotans supported Minnesotans. And then, of course, Mr. Chair, yesterday in Buffalo, we had a terrible tragedy, devastating incident for everyone who calls themselves a Minnesotan. And I have a couple of questions for Commissioner Harrington about that specific incident. Commissioner, can you tell us if agencies all across from the state came and responded to that incident yesterday, specifically from the city of Minneapolis?
Among them that I'm aware of was the city of Minneapolis's bomb squad, the University of Minnesota's bomb dogs reported up there. Hennepin County also responded, as did other local governments who supported Wright County. The State Patrol, the DNR, and also the BCA all responded to assist Buffalo and Wright County in the case, the tragedy yesterday.
Would it be sort of standard then to expect Minneapolis for the services that they rendered and other communities for the services that they rendered, their law enforcement services or their city services to submit a bill to the city of Buffalo for services rendered?
In my 40 years, I've never seen that happen where the city of Minneapolis or the city of St. Paul has ever asked for reimbursement for responding under mutual aid.
Would it be appropriate for city of Minneapolis or other communities to garnish the tax base of the city of Buffalo at the end of this year to sort of recuperate their losses? Would that be an appropriate intervention?
I do not think that would be appropriate. It doesn't seem either fair nor within the way that police and fire respond. It would not be an expectation, I believe, for the city or other agencies to want to be reimbursed out of the tax base or from the aid from a local government that has had a tragedy in their midst.
Governor Walz, as has been mentioned, responded on January 20th, proposing that this become not just a one-time event, but a state aid for a mutual support across the state for $35 million. Would help with the upcoming trial, but would also be relevant to events such as we observed yesterday in the terrible tragedy in Buffalo. And he requested, as Commissioner Harrington has mentioned, urgent passage by February 8th so that we can plan for these things. I think, my feeling, my impression, Mr. Chair, is that the best way to support law enforcement is to plan ahead for events that are clearly predictable, as we have seen in the insurrection at the United States Capitol, and to provide adequate means for staffing and funding to protect every officer with backup and superior force and tactical support and intelligence. It is not, in my impression, to submit a bill 1 year later after the fact to a municipality that in all likelihood is not subject to this particular legislation. For example, a city that doesn't have an existing mutual aid agreement or a city that doesn't have LGA at all. Furthermore, I think the bill undermines a mutual support system for law enforcement in our state, which seems to have relied historically on trust, brotherhood and sisterhood, and the idea of one Minnesota, and substitutes an ineffective and more mercenary systems.
When I think about the approach of this bill, it feels like we're going to wait until the troubles happened and then we're going to balance our accounts. And when I think about what I heard from Commissioner Harrington, it is we're going to put some money into an account so we're ready in case there is trouble. And so I'm going to start with Senator Weber. If you could explain the mechanism and how it supports both the prevention of, but also the the real good neighbor value of looking out for one another. And then Commissioner Harrington, I'd love it if you could answer that same question, talking about the proposal that's coming from the administration.
I think that as we think about the events of yesterday in Buffalo, which is truly a sad event and regrettable, and none of us want to see those type of things happen. We understand that when communities respond in that, it's a 1 or 2 day response, and typically those things happen without communities expecting to be reimbursed. I think that's safe to say pretty much all across this state. There are various times that in a time of emergency, communities respond and there's never a bill submitted. And so as it relates to what is coming up with the trial in Minneapolis, I think that, the original comment that was made to us by the governor was that there were the mutual aid agreements, there was a reluctance on the part of communities to sign them. And guarantee of payment was one of the main issues that was mentioned. And so as a result, this bill addresses that issue.
Is there an aspect of the proposal that we're hearing about today that would seek to get ahead of trouble, that would seek to prevent or prepare for what we might anticipate as we're hearing about regarding the trial that's coming up in March?
The assurance of and making sure that communities are willing to sign their mutual aid agreements goes a long ways to providing that. As to the planning and that has to occur, with the commissioner, with the city, and whoever else may be called into the situation. It's going to involve the State Highway Patrol. It's going to involve the National Guard, and I think that those type of things can and will go forward. Certainly, we have no hesitation as a state, to provide the needs for our Highway Patrol, for our National Guard, as they may need to be utilized.
This is really the issue that we're trying to address, is how do you get ahead of this so that you prevent bad things from happening, rather than trying to rush in after they've already gotten momentum and are rolling downhill on you. part of the struggle with this has been that while, yes, we can send some state assistance in, but in order to do the state assistance that we did last May and June, for example, we had to strip all of the highways in Minnesota from state police because we took every trooper we could to protect the Capitol and then to help Minneapolis, Hennepin County, and the adjoining suburbs and St. Paul and Ramsey County through that trouble. What we keep talking about right now is a scenario where we know that we have a serious high-risk event that is not manageable by local means, that is not acceptable to the public, either local or statewide, that is urgent, in that it is time sensitive, and that we have no control over stopping the time frame for it, and that we know if we do not respond appropriately at the front end, will grow like a wildfire, and it will not simply be a situation in one jurisdiction. It will take on a life of its own, as we saw, for example, during the riots on Nicollet Mall, where, yes, they started in Nicollet Mall, but they went into the suburbs around Minneapolis as the looting continued. And if we could not stop that in a timely fashion, it will continue to grow and grow and grow. And as Senator Klein mentioned, communities that were far distant from the scene of the protests in Minneapolis were in fact impacted. And we recognize that getting ahead of that is a way of preventing crime and preventing disorder in their communities also.
I spent some time yesterday with the city of St. Paul, and the city of St. Paul was sharing with me the ways in which they have activated assets that they have, whether it is hazmat unit, MART, air rescue. They house some of the only assets that we have dealing with some of the natural and human disasters that happen across the state. And they share them willingly. They don't send a bill. They feel like that is their obligation. And I think that embedded in there is a core Minnesota value. It's a core human value that when someone's in trouble, we look out for them. We call them good Samaritans in nursing. I bet in medicine, there's another term for it that Senator Klein would use. But if there's trouble, you go to it. And then you put the pieces together afterwards. And what I hear in these two different proposals is one, setting up the means to prevent and go to the trouble if there's trouble. And another that says, hey, you all, you're on your own now. And essentially what this proposal does is say, if there's a disaster in your community, we're going to use LGA to pay for it. We're going to tap into LGA to pay for it. We're going to use a funding source that is meant for local communities to do their basic services. And we're going to use that instead for disasters if they occur in your community. And I don't think that's right.
I just really believe people aren't reading the same piece of legislation that we're reading, or we're reading it and something else is happening here. From my reading of this, there's nothing prohibitive or mandating anything in this bill. Communities have come to us and expressed that, you know, if communities can still sign mutual aid agreements. Nothing's stopping them from doing what they're doing. It's not prohibitive. But when a community signs an agreement with another community, and that community that gets the aid then reneges on the reimbursement, then you got to go back to the other community, and now their budget gets cut, and they can't provide the services they're supposed to provide for their citizens.
The issue, you know, quite frankly, that has arisen, and the reason for this purpose, I guess maybe now is a good time to talk about one of the comments that was made earlier. As it talks about the purpose of LGA, it's to provide basic services for a community. It was a formula devised based upon population, tax base, a whole variety of issues in order to ensure that communities have the money that they need to provide the basic services. One of those basic services is protection. And, you know, and quite frankly, I'm not sure that this bill would have even be here today if it hadn't been for the fact that Minneapolis defunded their police. You know, quite frankly, for them to have done that, and then for the governor to ask money to ensure that we have a proper response come potential problems around the trial, to me is, I find that unreasonable. I find that objectionable. And quite frankly, they're receiving an amount of local government aid for which they are to provide that protection. Now, some may say, well, that's their right to use those monies as they wish. And maybe that's right. But at the end of the day, then to come around and ask everyone else to help pay for the law enforcement costs that, should be paid by them, I find that somewhat unreal. It's extremely important to have the mutual aid agreements with surrounding communities. And in order to do that, my bill will accomplish that by guaranteeing that they will be compensated for the unusual expenses that they may occur in response to the mutual aid agreement. I think that with that in place, they will sign those mutual aid agreements, because it is the nature of our law enforcement in Minnesota to respond to crises when they develop and when they are asked to respond. And I have great confidence in them. And I don't think that my bill will undercut that in any way, shape, or form.
To continue following these issues and more, watch legislative coverage Monday through Friday on the PBS Minnesota channel or visit our website, www.senate.mn/media.